Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie begins with Axel, waking up confused and with a severe headache. A moment later, Axel regains his senses, looks beside him, and is startled when he sees a dead mouse beside him. He soon realizes that he has been locked in a vault. The room is quite narrow, with a closed iron door and a locker inside. Worse, he is tormented by flies buzzing around his head. The man looks at his watch to check the time, 9:32 a.m. He then tries to open the iron door, but to no avail. He shouts and knocks on the door, but no response. He spends another couple of hours inside the vault, and absolutely needs to go to the bathroom. At first, he thinks this is some kind of prank. In particular, he suspects a coworker. He mockingly says that once he leaves, he will fire his assistant, but as time passes, he realizes that there is no one else there. He pulls his phone out to call his colleague for help, but there is no signal. He walks around the room to get some signal but fails. He has lost contact with the outside world. He heads to the iron closet to open it, but it too is locked. He tries to look inside the closet through small openings, suspecting that his colleague is hiding there, but he finds nothing. Walking inside the room, he tries to locate any hidden cameras, but there are none. He becomes increasingly puzzled and gradually loses his patience. He becomes angry and begins to verbally abuse his colleague, still convinced that this is a prank. Infuriated, he shouts, saying that he will paint the walls with defecation if they don't open the door. Then he unbuckles his belt and slams it on the iron door, hoping someone will hear him. Gradually he feels tired and calms down, because he has not eaten or drunk for a whole day. He continues to scold his colleague, threatening to report him to the police if he does not let him out, but once again he gets no response. He subsequently falls asleep, and the next day he wakes up and checks his phone signal once again. As he is getting up, he accidentally drops the phone on the ground, which shatters completely. To hydrate himself, he takes off his leather shoe and pees in it. Being extremely thirsty, he drinks it. As time passes, he begins to go insane, with no contact with the world outside. Loneliness and hunger kick in, and frustration drive him to the light pipe. Suddenly, he spots a key in the shadow of one of the overhead fluorescent lights. Taking the key, he uses it to open the closet. Inside, he finds 2 cylinders of pure oxygen and some tools, including a hammer and a chisel. Finally, he finds some welding equipment, including an oxyacetylene flashlight. He takes the tools from the closet to break the iron door, but they are useless, so he decides to burn the door with the assembled welding equipment. He attempts that, but the problem is that he does not know how to use the tool, so it is completely useless. He gives up after a few minutes, and only succeeds in burning the surface. Then he comes up with another idea, and tries to light the fire alarm with a flame, hoping to get some water this way. Unfortunately, it is a false alarm that does not work at all. He becomes enraged and moves the flame to the iron door, trying in vain to burn it, but to no effective avail. Next, he intends to use the hammer and chisel to try to chisel one of the walls of the vault, but he fails, because the iron door is indestructible. All the while, lack of water and hunger cause him to lose strength more and more. Desperate, he freaks out and throws down the cupboard to start kicking it. After venting his anger, he sits down in a corner to rest. Doing so conserves as much energy as possible, given his lack of food. As he does so, he notices a hole in the wall behind the closet. He takes his hammer and chisel to dig the hole, trying to create a tunnel to escape. He needs to escape as soon as possible, because he has been breathing the same air for a few days and will eventually feel even worse. As a solution, he starts to take some pure oxygen from the canister, but the high concentration of oxygen makes him dizzy, so he stops before he loses consciousness. Feeling better, he starts looking for something to eat. Meanwhile, worms begin to grow on the mouse on the ground, which attracts his attention. The strong desire to survive drives him to pick them and swallow them. Continuing to dig the hole with his relentless efforts, the hole gets bigger, and he can even see the steel bars inside the wall. He uses the tool to melt the steel bars, and soon after, a beam of light enters the hole, motivating him to continue. Eventually, he digs a large enough hole through the wall, and is able to enter the next vault. But when he gets to the other side, he realizes that the room is similar to the one he had stayed in before. He is cracking up, because his efforts have proved futile, and he starts hysterically hitting the iron door angrily. After venting his anger, the man recomposes himself, and begins to investigate the second vault, where he discovers a standard lamp and a red coffin in the corner. He carefully opens the lid of the coffin, and is surprised to find a beautiful woman lying inside. She is wearing a dress, and is sound asleep. He realizes she is alive after checking her pulse, so he tries to wake her up. Awakened, The woman seems to be terrified of the man and her surroundings. He tries to communicate with her, but she is too scared, and it turns out that he does not speak her language, so there is also a language barrier. The woman runs away and hides in the man's original room. Axel is too exhausted to stop her and explain what is happening, so he chooses to sleep in the coffin for the night. However, he is soon awakened by the frightened woman. She urges him to continue digging the tunnel, but due to hunger and thirst, he is too exhausted to continue. In addition, he has injured his hands after days of work. The woman thinks the man is just a slacker, so she takes the tools and starts digging herself, but it is not as easy as she thought. The woman suddenly feels like peeing. She runs into the other room, but is stopped by the man before removing her pants. Communicating through gestures, he tries to make her understand that she has to pee in his shoe, so that she can then drink. She is embarrassed, but understands his desperation, extreme dehydration. After she does it, the man desperately drinks the only source of water he has. He also encourages her to drink it, in order to stay even minimally hydrated. He also advises her the worms in order to survive, but she immediately refuses to do so. After eating, the man continues to dig the tunnel, but only succeeds in digging a small hole after a long work. The woman feels desperate, and cannot help sobbing. The optimistic man heartens her by singing a song. With his encouragement, the woman wipes away her tears, and begins to sing with him. He accidentally injures his finger while working, and the woman quickly removes her scarf to bandage his wound. The two gradually develop a deep friendship through this adversity, and eventually begin to collaborate. As they concentrate on their work, the lock on the iron door, which is on the opposite side of the room, begins to rotate on its own. The two immediately rush in, but the lock immediately returns to its original position. After several attempts, they learn the process of how the door works. He discovers that if they have their backs to the door, the lock opens automatically. So, they slowly approach the iron door, turning their backs. Eventually the door opens, and they manage to gain access to the third room. To their misfortune, outside the door is a similar room with an empty grave, a tombstone, and a similar iron door. The woman quickly returns to the previous room to get all the necessary tools. After searching the new room, they try to open the iron door by the same method, but the door remains closed. All they can do here is dig up the tomb, hoping to create a new tunnel inside it. At this point, the man is working on an empty stomach and is extremely dehydrated, therefore, the hopeless work almost makes him collapse. The woman endures the deprivation much better, because she has done much less physical labor. She soon notices that the man is beginning to run a fever, due to dehydration. He suddenly realizes the true and evil intentions of the mind that has trapped them here. He believes that their captor wants to watch them kill each other in desperation, which means that they will not get out of here unless one of them dies, and that the grave will be the destination for one of them to end the torture. Initially, the man immediately thinks of killing the woman. However, he fails to carry out his idea, and gives up his plan to kill her. Exhausted and hopeless, he throws himself into the grave. The woman kicks and beats him, trying to keep him conscious this way, but he gives no reaction. She does her best to drag him out of the grave and console him. She feels horrible, and shouts loudly at the iron door, hoping that there will be a response outside, but she cannot find any way out. To keep the man alive, she gives him her tears to drink, because if he dies, she will not be able to survive either. A few moments later, the woman starts taking off her clothes, to motivate him to push on and not give up. Fortunately, the man slowly wakes up as she gently comforts him. The woman's plan works, and he wakes up, ending up making love together. Subsequently, they fall asleep together on the floor. When the man awakens from sleep, he notices the woman he slept with. He drags himself into the second room, tearing a piece of velvet from the coffin and covering it with the woman. Shortly, he faints again in a daze. At that moment, he seems to hear the sound of the lock rotating. He immediately wakes up the sleeping woman, and same as the previous method, they have their backs to the iron door to get closer. The man has become too weak to walk alone. With the woman's help, he walks with his last strength to reach the iron door. Fortunately, this time the door opens, and a completely different scene is revealed. The world outside the iron door is as beautiful as paradise, waterfalls, birds and flowers everywhere. The two admire the magnificent surroundings, realizing that they have survived, and can start a new life. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Turn on the notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out.